want to call, what they got.
How's everybody?
Good.
Yeah, good. Oh, we got.
There.
We're gonna do that well.
Proverbs 3:9.
Shit, I can do it soon.
Proverbs 3:9. When it comes to worship, one of the elements of worship is giving. Okay? Worship giving is a spiritual act of praise expressed by offering resources such as wealth with a cheerful and generous heart as a response to God's grace. Proverbs 3:9. Honor the Lord with your wealth and with the first fruits of all you produce. Okay, two words. Kind of jump, actually three, but I'm going to start with two words. Honor. So when I say honor, what does that mean? What does it mean to honor?
Respect,
What's that?
respect.
Respect. Show respect. Honor the Lord. Respect the Lord. Because of the Lord. Honor the Lord with your wealth and with the first fruits. Now I'm just going to go right over wealth, and I'm going to go right to first fruits. What does the term first fruit mean?
First, before anything else, the best.
First, the best. There you go. The first, the best. Now, I kind of goes back to an agricultural background. For those with an agricultural background, I can tell you my wife's family, that first sweet corn that came out of Dad's garden, that was the first fruits. And there was nothing like it. And God says, yeah, that's what I want. That's what I expect. The first fruits. That first realization, you know, I can remember my first paycheck. Remember your first real paycheck? You look at it and you think, I can't believe the government took that much of it. After that realization, then you're like, wow, I just made some money. Now, I can remember it was Shenandoah Pizza over here on Weems Lane. It's my first job. And I got a paycheck.
Yeah.
What's that?
No.
Is it still there, dear?
No, it's not there anymore. You know, and I shouldn't say, but a lot of companies I work for don't exist anymore.
Well, that's not what we were insinuating.
Yeah, I know, but that just kind of dawned on me that, no, it's not there, and neither was this one, and neither was that one. Anyway, we honor God because of God, in respect of God. We honor him with our wealth and the first fruits, because he says, the best and the first, I expect. 2 Corinthians chapter 9. 2 Corinthians 9 and verse 7. Second Corinthians 9 verse 7. All right, again, Paul's talking to the Corinthians, a group of Christians who are, more than likely, there's some pretty good money flowing through Corinth. there was a lot of wealth being generated, and there was more than likely some people in the church there that had decent amount of money. And Paul tells them, each one of you must give as he has decided in his heart, not reluctantly or under compulsion, for God loves a cheerful giver. Okay, we give, this is our, our back to our head, hands, and hearts. As we are doing our giving, as we are writing that check, as we are doing what we do to give back, where does it say we start? So our hands are working, but it starts in the heart. You give from your heart. Now, you're going to have to decide what that means. Okay? And we're going to talk a little bit coming up about how to kind of massage that heart to get it to where I feel good about giving. Because God doesn't just say, first 10% I get. He did, but he doesn't do that anymore. He doesn't say, you get that paycheck. Now, unlike the federal government and the state government, who takes your first fruits, basically, they're going to take theirs first. God says, today, for you and me, go to your heart. You get your heart right first, because God doesn't want you out of obligation, as you're dropping, and I'm going to use the check, we have lots of ways, but as that check gets dropped into our little box back there, he doesn't want you to be prying that out of your hands, okay? And you're, that's not what he's looking for. He expects you to look inside yourself first, because he wants your heart in it. Now, if you sit back there, now, 2 people won the Powerball last night. 1.8 billion just went to 2 different people.
I won't be here next week.
Yeah, Tom says, I went into the wall when we were done yesterday. They were like 8 deep in front of the Powerball machine. And I'm like, I just want a sandwich and drink. But today, there are 2 people, and then let's say Tom Doug did win. Okay, I'll go with that.
No, don't.
Okay, I'll go with that. Don't even pretend. Okay, Joe, you won the lottery.
All right, I did buy some.
Don't look at it as buying. Look at it as giving your money away.
Yeah.
That.
That.
And I'll be honest, I thought about it, but the line was too long, and I needed to get to T-Ball.
That's right.
But let's say we did. All of a sudden we wake up this morning and we're worth now $200 million. Would you be able to write that check and put it in? Think about, let's say it was $1 billion. Would you be able to write that $100 million check and put it right in?
Yes.
Yes.
And I'll tell you, honest conversation. Kim and I were talking last night as we were driving home about if we won that, what would we do? And I promise you, this is what came out of my mouth. The first thing was, I would give to this church what we need to just tear this down, rebuild it, get totally out of debt. And that was one of the things, honestly. And I'm not trying to, be full of pride or anything, but I think depending on what's in your heart to do with it, because that's more than anybody could ever spend in their life. And I think based on what you would do with it is key.
Again, there's the difference between the old law, the old covenant, and the new covenant. God wants your heart first. He really wants your heart first. Okay? Now, for some reason, he thinks you ain't worth it. But that's okay.
Obviously.
Obviously, it wasn't good enough. But worship giving does, that thought of, I'm going to help somebody. I have the opportunity to help somebody. And worship giving demonstrates brotherly love and supplies the needs of others. Philippians 4:18. Now, here's an instance where, I'll flip it over. Paul says, I have received full payment and more. I am well supplied, having received from Epaphroditus and gifts you sent, a fragrant offering, a sacrifice acceptable and pleasing to God. Paul's basically sending them a thank you here, giving them a thank you, because there are those in Philippi that opened their wallets for him. And he says, thank you. And that's a big part of giving too, is what good can we do? And that should be central, okay? Honoring God, helping others. Honoring God, helping others. And I'm not going to go through all the verses, because there are dozens of verses in the Bible that says, give to honor God and help others. Okay, good. And we could probably spend, 2 days going through all the verses? So is anybody gonna say that giving is not a part of worship? I think we can all agree on that fact, that it's an important part. It's just as important as the sermon. It's just as important as the singing. I wish John were here. It's just as important as the communion, and it's just as important as the giving. Because God says, get your heart right. Get your heart right. And it's a good way to make sure you've got your heart right. Because when it comes to money, it gets real personal real fast. My stuff gets real personal. And we really have to I don't want to say get over it or get past it, because that's always going to be there. What I have made, what I have done, what I have accumulated, what I have earned. And giving part of that back is something that we all in our heart have to say that is something that is very, very, can get very personal very quick. And it can hurt. There's nothing wrong with being poor, it's just inconvenient. And we sit back and we think, I'm at a place where I think about my retirement. I'm at a place where I think about, taking care of my family, yada, yada, all of that. David,
I think you have to work on your mindset.
Mhm.
It's not what I earned. It's what God has given me and allowed me to earn. And I think that would in turn help with your giving.
And that goes back to that first word we talked about, honor. And humility. Yes, honor. That says, you know what? God has blessed me. And realizing God has blessed me. Now, so I don't want to talk, I think we're pretty much done talking about how important giving is. And God expects us to give. I think there's no argument there, right? So now what we're going to talk about is so why is it so hard to talk about it? Why is it so hard? Why does it get kind of taboo? Why is it so taboo? And how do we feel better about my giving and telling other people they need, or teaching about giving? I mean, how many sermons have you done on giving? A few. A few. How many sermons have you done on baptism? Lots. It's a comfortable topic. Giving is not a comfortable topic. So let's make it comfortable. Okay, that's what I hope to do. in the next 30 minutes. Let's make it comfortable and figure out, why is it, by looking at why is it uncomfortable, and let's make it comfortable. Okay. Now, I have a theory. Sitting here right today what year are we in, 2025? 2025. And I look around the room and I see a few of us that were alive in the 70s and 80s. Okay. In 1974, Jim and Tammy Faye Baker founded the PTO Club. Okay? It was an American religious television network, and it evolved into a theme park. Throughout the 80s, Jim and Tammy Faye Baker were the face of PTO, okay? Where they needed to raise $500,000 per day at its height to keep operating. Okay, now, I'm going to use the term empire, because it wasn't empire. When you have to bring in $500,000 a day, that's an empire. They had to raise $500,000 per day at its height to keep operating. Their fundraising efforts became a constant and central part of the TV ministry, with the ministry receiving millions in return mail from viewers who constantly asked for money. But reports of lavish spending and hush money paid to Jim's mistress eventually led to criminal charges against Jim Baker. Baker, after a 16-month federal grand jury probe, Baker was indicted in 1988 on 8 counts of mail fraud, 15 counts of wire fraud, and 1 count of conspiracy. In 1989, after a 5-week trial, a jury found Jim Baker guilty on all 24 counts. He was sentenced to 45 years in federal prison and imposed a $500,000 fine. Other neighbors, Roberts and Jimmy Swaggart, brought their own scandals and accusations of using church money to fund lavish lifestyles and sex scandals. Now, these got the news. And these were in the news, and I think it was a big black eye to Christianity and how money flows through. Now, the problem is, whether it's the church or the PTA, money and power are fertile grounds for bad things. We had an instance in Maryland. A lady embezzled $75,000 from the PTA on the school. Okay. You know, the lure of easy money has a very strong appeal. So the song says. So, and we can talk about all that, that we want. But I want to go to 1 Timothy. 1 Timothy chapter 6 and verse 10. Again, let's look at our context here. You've got Paul writing to a young preacher, young minister. And Paul tells Timothy in 1 Timothy 6:10, for the love of money is the root of all kinds of evils. It is through this craving that some have wandered away from the faith and pierced themselves with many pangs. The lure of easy money has a very strong appeal. It was that way 20 years after Jesus died, and it's that way 2,000 years after Jesus died. Financial issues, having too much or having too little, can lead to mental health challenges such as anxiety, stress, depression, as well as physical health problems. If you have never worried and never had an issue with money, congratulations. You are one of the very, very few. I would imagine all of us here in the room one time or the other has looked at the bills, and looked at the checkbook and thought, they don't balance. They don't. Where, what, or worse, what am I going to do? Financial issues impair relationships. Okay? 3 big reasons couples divorce: commitment or lack thereof, infidelity, and money. Those are the big 3. In general, money is a personal and emotional powder keg. Any arguments there?
Is it money or is it the love of money?
Well, it says the love of money. And money in and of itself, we'll always have rich, and we're always going to have. It's been that way, and it will always be that way. And if you read the works of Lenin and Marx, you think likewise, you're kidding yourself. Because it doesn't work that way. Money is a powder keg. Okay.
I think what God is trying to get across to us is the same thing that he was trying to get across to Cain and Eve, which is that you rely on me first, not on yourself.
That's right.
Right. And that's really what it comes down to in the heart.
Yeah.
Which one do you rely on first? Do you rely on this inert thing that it's a tool and that it can do stuff? You put your hope in that for security, or do you put your hope in God?
Yeah.
Right? And that's ultimately the question people have to answer. And that's a tough question, right? And it's a self-indicting question for many people, or for all of us at certain points in our lives. But that's really what it says. The love of money is the opposite of that is the love of God.
It starts in the heart. It's the love of money in and of itself. You love the object. I mean, let's face it, there are those of us who are very attractive. We're gifted with something that's very, we're a very attractive person. And you can fall in love with yourself if you think you're too good. Okay? It's nothing, it's on how you deal with what you have been blessed with. If you've been blessed with a lot of money, a lot of intelligence, a lot of charisma, it's how you deal with it in your heart. How you purpose with it. The term is Christian stewardship. Okay? You're given something, and it may be money, it may be, again, talent, looks, charisma. What you do with it and how you approach it is what's important relative to the blessing itself. Christian stewardship, the practice of responsibly managing the resources God has entrusted to a person rather than owning them outright. It's that realization that resource I have, money I have, that's God's. God has given me that. First thing I need to do is realize I have been blessed and I didn't necessarily earn it. And that's where that paradox, kind of paradoxical, there's a balance there. It said, well, it wouldn't be there if I hadn't have. Well, God gave you that ability. That's in Deuteronomy chapter 8. God gives you that ability to generate that wealth. The practice of responsibly managing the resources God has entrusted to you rather than owning them outright. This includes a wide range of gifts such as time, talents, finances, relationships, which Christians are called to receive gratefully, cultivate, use for the good of others, and return with increase to God. It is a fundamental aspect of Christian faith, requiring honest, generous, and faithful management of what belongs to God. Money. There's nothing wrong with charisma. Nothing wrong with good looks. There's nothing wrong with relationships, having connections. Nothing wrong. It's all in how you, I love this term. It's all in how you receive gratefully, cultivate, use for the good of others, and return with an increase to God. So, why do people struggle to give to the church? Not looking for a confession today. No. Why do people, what is so hard? And I think that if we look at this, we find out what's hard, then conversely, we can see how not to struggle to avoid this. I've got 9 reasons why people struggle to give to the church, according to Church Growth Magazine. So what do you think? Why is it so hard to give to the church?
Well, I don't know what all 9 of them are, but I think of one being too much debt.
Okay, yeah, that is. That's number 5.
Yeah.
Debt.
Too much debt because they want too many things and they charge them.
Debt, and you are absolutely. Consumer debt, credit cards, furniture payments, car payments. Most of you know I like I've always wanted a Corvette. There was a yellow one sitting up on the boys' line. I looked at it. $144,000. You know what the payment was? You know, it always gives you the little payment calculator. $2,750 per month for 6 years.
What's your problem?
Oh, yeah. My wife wouldn't even let me slow down when we were going by. The light was red there. No, run the light. Run the light. You know, but and first of all, they'd see me come in on the lot. They wouldn't even let me sit. But you know, there are those that they can't get. I got to have it. Yeah, debt. Yeah, debt hurts. There's a new thing out. Some of you may or may not know. The online gambling. From what I understand, that has become one of the newest marital issues. Is that either the husband or the wife are hooked, and all of a sudden you're in debt on $30,000, $40,000, and the wife doesn't. And I'm going to pick on the guys because it's probably mostly the guys. All of a sudden you got a $40,000 debt. You haven't told your wife anything about it. So yeah, debt's a big one. What's another one? What's another reason people struggle to give?
Don't trust the leadership.
Oh, Peggy, you went right to the bottom. Yeah, you went right to the bottom of the list.
Oh, that's at the bottom?
Yep, which is the wrap everything.
Oh,
So people are in debt and they don't trust the leadership. I get it. You know, as that check goes in the box, it's easy to think, wonder what they are gonna do with this. That's our responsibility. Okay, that's Rick's responsibility. What's that? I will tell you, I trust Rick, fully, okay? And I've never tried to worry about money in the church, because people worry enough. They didn't need my extra worry, so I just kind of, but, it is a big deal, and I hope that when that comes out of your hand, I hope that there is a matter of trust in your leadership, and if there's not there, or any doubt, please, we want to be transparent. I know Rick wants to be transparent. I hope Rick wants to be. And agree with me, Rick, this is important. Yeah.
Look at every number.
Yeah, he's like, look at every number. And we keep trying to simplify it so that, explaining every number. But yeah, if there's a trust issue, let's talk about it. Chris, did you have something?
I got a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
I don't know if it'll be on that list, but talking about offering,
Yeah.
I don't think it's just church offering.
Okay.
I think it could be anything. Charity, there's a million of them.
Mhm.
And, even today when you go to Martin's or you go to McDonald's and you're buying your stuff, before you make the final payment, it'll come up. You want to round up to the nearest dollar or give X amount for local food bank.
Mhm.
And that, I always do that. Or, and McDonald's has the Ronald McDonald House, but they do the same thing, and there's a bunch of them. I guess my question is, are we just talking church offering? Because I think offering goes beyond church.
I agree with, I'm thinking more along
Okay,
in these
okay.
four walls,
Okay.
but you're right, and it is on the list. Know where the money goes.
Okay.
And whatever it is, and that's what I like. One of the nice things about, Church of Christ lets us ask to believe, I think it's 92 cents of every dollar goes to the, unlike some of the other charities, the bigger ones, where it's, vast majority of the money goes to managing the money and not to the victims. You can do your own research, but to me, that's the litmus test for anything, including the church. What percentage of the money goes where? And knowing where that money goes, and feeling good about that. That's feel good about it. I hope, it's my wish that when Rick's writing that when the money is being processed, you feel good about where it's going. Okay? I hope you feel good about where it's going, and I hope all of us, because they feel good, we feel good. And really understand it. And if you're interested in what percent goes where, how many this and that, if you really want to know, we'll make that. We'll tell you. Maybe we should do it. We should do more, but to do that. Right? I think everybody here, that's a big problem. I think everybody realizes we run pretty lean. We are very judicious. So what else?
Well, you said, somebody said they don't trust the leadership. Maybe
It's my wife that said she didn't give to you.
I know who said it, but I wasn't gonna figure that out. Well, maybe we don't trust God.
Okay, and that's on the list too, okay? We don't understand, okay, first off, and this was top of the list. We don't grasp Jesus' generosity. You know, we take community Sunday, but do we really understand how generous Jesus was and what he did? And we don't understand the reciprocal nature of giving to God. Is that kind of,
Yeah, we don't trust that he's gonna, and I don't wanna use this word, but I'll use it just because it's easy to understand, that he's gonna pay us back generously.
exactly, you know, and that's exactly the point, is that you don't want to say give to get, but that's the concept, and God has said, you know, you give and you'll get back in return. Again, that's one of those other verses that I didn't go into, but you give and it'll come back to you. Now, it may not come back directly, and it may come back in a way that 10 years later you look and say, God, now I see what you did. Okay. Now I see why. And that's how you need to, and if you don't grasp that, you need to. And that's a problem. Go ahead, Judy.
Well, maybe some people, when it comes to giving, maybe they don't fully understand the concept of it and how important it is to give something back to God.
Yeah.
So they just kind of maybe pass it off as not that important.
Well,
They might.
Yeah, because as you know, as Tom said, you know, he's given few sermons on giving. We don't like to talk about it. We're embarrassed to talk. You know, and I always, you know, I've seen men stand up. We do the communion. Of course, we do the communion first, and we do the offering. The meetings. You know, and it's almost like they're ashamed to be, you know, oh, this is not the Lord's Supper. This is totally, almost like it's ancillary. Or not out, you don't feel, if you're not a member, don't feel obligated to give. Almost like we're embarrassed to ask. Well, actually, and this is radical. You should be standing up and in a loving, polite way say, look, you've been blessed. That if is a big word. If you've been blessed, you need to give. Just like you need to listen to the scripture. You need to sing and give glory to God. You need to take communion and remember Jesus. And yeah, folks, you need to give. Now that's tough. That takes us, in today's culture, in today's world, that takes a special type of person to be able to do that. Go ahead.
And I have said this at the offering as well. But I'm very struck by John 3:16, which we often think of as this is, you know, that Jesus came. But if you start to just take off the part about Jesus and focus on the first part, for God so loved the world. He so loved the world that the biggest thing that he could think of to do was give.
Exactly.
He gave. That was how he expressed how much he loved us, right? And I think that's exactly the corollary to that is, for we so love God that and then we need to fill in the blank there, but we should know what it should be.
Yeah, that's right. And right after we've had communion, what a great time to say, okay, you realize what Jesus did for you? Look inside your heart now and figure out what you can do. And understand what the Bible says. Okay? Because there's a lot of verses. Because if I'm not mistaken, there's more verses in the Bible about giving than there are about baptism. You know, about a lot of different topics that we are very comfortable talking about.
about money in general.
About money in general, yeah, exactly. Okay. So, what else? We got about 4 minutes. What else? I've got 1, 2, 3, I got 4 more.
I think the one thing that's very basic is, if you don't pay your electric bill, your electricity gets turned off. If you don't give at church, right, they don't, it's, you can still come back the next week. Right, so there's a sense of, well, which one is more important?
Yeah.
So I think it can be easy to get caught up in that as well. If your budget is tight, and you're like, well, I could give, or I can pay my electric bill, which one will people often do?
Yeah. Well, I mean, let's face it, one of the reasons is people are in financial difficulty. Okay. Things happen. Medical bills. I've lost my job. Okay. Yeah, there's a lot of reasons, and that's why God, I believe that's why God didn't just, He wants us in our heart and to know what's going on. You get your head around what's going on. If you're in financial difficulty, you do something to get yourself back to where you can give. But sometimes people are in financial difficulty, and it's hard for them to give. I mean, it happens. Or somebody becomes a new Christian, okay, and they're in debt. Church giving, charitable giving has never been a priority, and they're now in transition. Okay? They're now in transition. The key is they need to start making better lifestyles and financial decisions. Okay? So once they do that, then they can give. Yes, sir.
I think also a big struggle, even for Christians, it's that many of us believe God is real, but sometimes we struggle to believe that God is good. And I think that can affect the way that we give. To know that we serve and live for a good God that will take care of us, that will nurture us in whatever circumstance. And sometimes we may hold back from giving just because we're afraid, hey, will God be able to handle my situation and take care of it through this?
Yeah, and that's where, okay, next week we're talking about prayer. And that's where, if you're struggling with giving, talk to God about it. Okay, God help me here. Okay, I know I should be given more than X. Help me. Help me. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And that's getting that relation. You don't have to figure it out alone. Money is a very personal thing. We don't want to, my dad, he didn't even open his wallet. If I wanted, if I was going to the ball game, I wanted to get a concession, whatever, I didn't get in Dad's wallet, pull out a $10 bill. He would say, go get my wallet and bring it to me. I would take the wallet to him, and he would give me the money. I didn't dare touch Dad's wallet. And that's kind of, sometimes we're too personal. We're not afraid to talk to God. Because I can tell you, if you talk to God about it, He'll help you. If you genuinely in your heart want to give more, you feel like you should give more, start there. So when it comes to giving to the church, two last things. One, people struggle because they're not involved. Okay. And that goes in, it's a whole lot easier to give to something that you are invested in. It's easy to give your money if your feet are there. It's easy to give your money if your hands are there. It's easy to give your money if your head is there. It's easy to get that heart right when, the reason I trust Rick unequivocally is because I know him. I've known him for, it feels like 100 years. Close, just about, and because I know him, I trust him. Well, if you don't trust him, just get to know him, okay? Because you'll learn real quick. he's the chief, he's standing on a dime, tell you if it's heads or tails. He's very steward-like. Sir,
I'll just throw in a point. Now, I think
Yes,
financial
please.
insecurity is something we don't always acknowledge in our lives. Even if God has blessed us to the point, it becomes a lifestyle. We may be in need during our lives. Our fear of being in need. Even when we're blessed, we have a hard time seeing through that sometimes.
absolutely, that's where trust, faith, and all of these, it's where God, help me put it aside, Yeah.
We also like as humans, we like our ease. You look at the Bible and the rich guy's going to tear down his barns and build bigger ones, and I can take my ease. So it's easy for us to reprioritize.
First thing they taught us in business school was money is a short-term motivator. You give somebody a raise, it doesn't matter how much it is. It'll motivate them. Money is a short-term motivator. Carol?
When we actually believe that Jesus and God tell us the truth, and they say, deposit your money in heaven, as well as in the bank down the street. Well, I tell you, my bank down the street is deposited automatically. I don't even get to see that. And the money that goes to God should go on an automatic deposit. And it goes at the very top of that paycheck. When you get it, that's the first thing you do. And you give God the money. I have a budget, and I have all my things written down, and I have at the bottom for God,
I think this is it. Go ahead.
because it's the very first thing that comes off of that budget. When we give ourselves to God, it's easier to make deposits on heaven, because that's His bank. Our bank is here on earth. God doesn't have anything to do with that.
The last thing before we go is people don't understand the administrative needs of the church. Salvation's free, religion's expensive. One of the things that we're talking about is replacing the air conditioners. Can't not have air conditioning next summer. Okay, both that ain't cheap. And between Tracy and Anna, they'd kill me if we didn't have air. And I think Velma might, like Velma, she's not, I'm not picking with this name here. I think between those three, Rick and John and I would be, we'd be scared. So, thank you. Sorry we went over a little bit. That's why we give. Thank you for